For the latest film interviews, reviews, and everything making news in pop culture, subscribe to Film Companion now. Sucharita, Rahul, happy Diwali! I hope you are rested and safe and you've had a good time. I just feel like all I've done is watch movies all week.
Same.
Like movies and hello shows. The Crown is up now, so I am going to bed every night first watching each one episode of Queen's Gambit each night. Now it's one episode of Crown each night. उससे पहले Scam each night. बीच में 5 नई फिल्में. It's been quite insane.
It's been insane. There was one day when I finished watching one film, wrote the review, shot the review, and I said, okay, I get a breather till tomorrow. And just then the next screener landed in my inbox.
I mean, it's actually, it feels like a festival. It feels like कुछ film festival चल रहा है back to back. हम फिल्में देखने back to back. तो मेहनत का काम है पर मजे आ रहे हैं.
मजे आ रहे हैं, बिल्कुल. Rahul, for you?
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had a week like this, right? And yeah, that's the closest I think we've come to feeling normal in this year, like being packed with films. And this was also around the time, Mami would happen and also it's like, it's the closest.
Correct. So we are used to this kind
of. It does feel like dashing from PVR Versova to PVR Juhu, then back to PVR City Mall, then Versova. It feels like that digitally.
Yes. Okay, so let's start with Ludo. I love Anurag's sort of sense of whimsy, his sense of wonder. What did you guys think of it?
I think I think Rahul and I both said the same thing. I read your review later. It said the same thing, that this review also feels like it's meandering, like the film was. I also said the same thing. Like, I'm sorry if I've confused you further with my attempt at analyzing this, because in my head, I've not been able to make a linear understanding of what that film was said to me and how it made me feel. And which is, in this particular case, in Anurag Basu's case, not a bad thing, because it's still a very immersive world that he's created. So I liked it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I just feel like, I wish there was somebody who would just tell Anurag, no, stop. Who would just draw a line and say, you cannot go over this. Because I just feel like, I think he falls in love with the worlds he creates because they're so compelling and the characters are so interesting and anything is possible, right? Which is not possible for us in life. But in an Anurag Basu film, anything is possible. And then he never knows when to stop, or when that laughter is starting to strain, or when it's just not funny anymore. And I just feel like it's such a shame because there's so much good stuff that gets buried in all the flab. Is that what you felt, Rahul?
Yeah, I felt like this was the least of his trilogy, so I call it so far, because I felt like this was also like a very conscious reaction to the way we reacted to Jagga Jasus, or to the way it was received in general, because Jagga Jasus went wild, in the last 1 hour. And that's when we realized that Anurag Basu, as great as he is as creating these worlds, and, he has this whimsical vision, which we all love. And, it reminds me of the very core of why I started following the movies. But, he does need restraint. And I felt like he tried a certain degree of restraint in this film, especially with the way he put himself into the film with that cameo as, Yamraj sort of giving us a voiceover. I didn't think it worked so much because I felt like to go crazy and not know your limits is part of his vision in a way. Like, if you say that Anurag Basu, should draw a line somewhere, we can watch it and say that. But, for him, if he actually thinks that, then we won't see whatever little we see on screen, those colors and those crazy little leaps of faith that he takes in his films. We won't see it anymore. So it's a very fine line. I feel like, this was, I can't say I particularly enjoyed this film so much. I actually got bored at a lot of points in the film. And I would never say that about an Anurag Basu film, because Jagga, with all its faults, I still remember a lot of those scenes and moments. But here, I just felt like the multi-narrative, psychologically, it tires the viewer a little more. When there's no one character like Ranbir Kapoor or like Barfi, or, there are 4 different stories going on, and it's his attempt to basically give some method to his imagination to tell us that he's actually thought about it, but he actually hasn't, because the colors are a very loose definition of how to give some give some direction to your wildness in your mind. And for me, that didn't work so much as his previous films. And I don't think I'm going to like remember this film. I know I got a lot of jokes saying 2-3 years later in FC retake, you and Anupama will sort of talk about it and say you loved it. I really don't think so. Not this time.
अब हमारी ये भी तो प्रॉब्लम है सुजाता,
No,
हम
seriously.
दोनों जो भी बोलते हैं they saying हाँ हाँ कोई नहीं, 2 साल के बाद you'll be saying the opposite.
Yeah,
Sitting across from each other, being like,
yeah, exactly.
on second thoughts,
Correct.
second thoughts. No, but I agree with Rahul where he says that it got boring and monotonous in the middle, because a multi-narrative film and a film with so many characters played by really impressive actors, each and every single one of them. Abhishek Bachchan se lekar Pankaj Tripathi, everybody, like, such a wide range, right? So the film demands your attention, unwavering attention. It demands you to actively be taking pointers when you're watching it in your brain. Because you cut away from one and then you go to somebody else and then you cut away from them and you go to a third person and then you maybe come back to the first one if you don't go to the fourth. And it's a lot of hard work watching a film like that. So when the payoff feels like you watch, okay, fine, you're watching Paul Thomas Anderson because I'm obsessed with him, right? And this year has been a Paul Thomas Anderson obsession year. But you watch Magnolia. That film also is very long, 3 hours. But at the end, the payoff is so, for the lack of a better word, tasty.
Right.
He's raining frogs at the end of the film. That's it. Everything just comes together in this absurd climax. Here, it felt like the effort that went into watching the film, barring some portions like Raj and Fatima's plot, barring portions, it felt like it was too much effort to watch the film and the payoff was not enough.
Correct. But my sense is, guys, that was because the characters themselves were not interesting. It's not the actors, because people like Sanya and all have given like really solid performances. Abhishek as well. But I think it was so Raj and Fatima got the best track, and
By
Raj
far.
outstanding. I think he was just nobody else could pull that dance of pain and love and passion off in the way that he did. Yeah. it was just lovely, but I feel like the other characters, I mean, Sanya and Aditya Roy Kapoor's sort of track, I just didn't care. I didn't care whether they marry, they don't marry. There's a sex tape. Same for Rohit Saraf and Pearly. Like, beyond a point. I mean, for me, the compelling ones were Raj and Fatima, and of course then Sattu Bhaiya, Pankaj Tripathi and Lata Kuti. That love story was, I wish it had been more of one of the primary colors rather than the aside. But since we have brought up the word restraint, let's move on to Lakshmi Bomb. No longer called Lakshmi Bomb, now only Lakshmi. I apologize for
Lakshmi
the
with a
bomb.
double I.
Yeah, with double I, where there was no restraint at all. And I'll tell you, I don't know. I know, Suchata, you said at the top of your review that you didn't see the Tamil original. Rahul, did you see that film?
No, I don't.
So, a lot of it is in that film. The kind of the tonality, that shrieky kind of pitch, right? But it is a film made in 2011. And it's a film where the hero is a wimp. And to me, that was where this film really, there was no arc because Akshay,
that conflict was just not there.
It wasn't there in that film. Like, literally, there's scenes that are so ridiculous. The hero's jumping on his mom's. You know how you put little kids on your hip pe, aise na hip pe hold karte hain. That this is like a 30-year-old or 25-year-old man leaping on his mom's hip like that when he thinks that there's a ghost or there's darkness. It's that extreme of fear, timidness, cowardice. And then he becomes this sort of avenging angel and so there is a fun to be had. It's cheesy and it's silly, but you enjoy that. But here he's already a savior from the first.
Yeah, I suppose that's a lot is down to, obviously, Akshay Kumar's legacy and Bollywood in general, right? Because obviously he's known for a certain kind of cinema, and he's gone out of his way to be the social message savior in mainstream Hindi cinema, and every film of his is a version of that. So I guess when you have a superstar like him in a film, the film starts to obviously morph into him rather than him being part of the film, and that we've seen with all our films. Yeah, it's serving him rather than the other way around. And so obviously you're not going to have a wimp, if it's Akshay Kumar. He's the most mature, like, possible Bollywood star we have right now in his 50s. So yeah, that is obviously one of the lesser problems of this film. But yeah, at a very fundamental issue with film, with Lakshmi and films like that, is exactly what you said. Exactly what even we know whenever Akshay Kumar plays a character, whenever Ajay Devgan plays a character these days, it's pretty much the same thing. And all the terribleness of the film is second to all this, because
Right.
I can still understand why they went for such a garish sort of comedy horror tone, and why such a loud tone, and just to sort of shock the viewer. And it is at its heart a big screen film, so we are watching it on the small screen, so it seems all the more ridiculous.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which is fine. A bad film is a bad film, but yes, it always comes down to Hindi cinema and the egos in it, and uh, our inability to sort of transcend that, at the service of art sort of syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Akshay Kumar just never blended in with the landscape for 30 seconds, even
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
film. There are many, many films where the actor in the lead part has a personality that threatens to become bigger than the film. You look at Vidya Balan movies, look at Tumhari Sulu. She carried the film from start to finish, but she is a part of the film. She is a part of the landscape. She's part of the universe that film created. Whereas, and even when you walk out of Tumhari Sulu and like 2 years after its release, and 3 years I think it's been after its release, the first thing that comes to your mind is Vidya Balan, because her personality is bigger than that movie was. But it still was a good film because she blended into the film. It wasn't about her, it was about the story, it was about the film, about the character. Here Akshay Kumar just never blended into his character as Lakshmi, or as I don't even Asif, right? His character. Not for 30 seconds. And other very basic things, like, and every single reviewer and every single person has pointed out that small little things, like they've not addressed the age gap between the two characters. And then you're just like, this is very superficial. If you are not convinced enough to address everything that you are showing me on the screen, then I am not buying it.
Yeah.
And I just did not buy into the film for a minute.
And it's such a shame that you're back to that women as decoration
Yeah.
thing. I mean, it's
Yeah.
completely like poor Kiara had literally nothing to do except the Burj Khalifa song, and I was just like, oh man, and she's a good actor, and I was like, oh, how this is where I began. When I started in the 90s, it was women as decorative props. I'm like, no,
And stupid,
no.
decorative, stupid props.
Correct. I was like, we can't go back there. Come on, man. But I'll have to. For me, I think a harder one to handle in some sense, because I expected more, was Chhalaang, because of Rajkumar Rao and Hansal Mehta. I just felt like, though the promos kind of felt very standard issue,
Bland.
it just was so bland. But I was just hoping that when these two come together, they'll do something with it. But Chhalaang was just, it was
Never
just
Chhalangoed. It just never jumped.
I don't know. What do you think happened there?
Just too basic. Just
Yeah.
too basic. What is the film pointing towards? What are you saying, that women can play sports? Or the film couldn't even get me convinced on who I'm rooting for. I was rooting for Rajkumar Rao, or am I rooting for Mohammad Zishan Ayub? Because his character is better than your protagonist in every sense. He's not a bad guy, he's a good guy.
Correct.
And he's qualified for the job, and he's qualified for the girl.
Yeah.
Nusrat Bharucha's shoes were very distracting throughout.
Oh my God, did you? I was like, I can't do this. I'm not watching the scene. It was this high. And I started to think of like, wait, how's she doing this? How's she doing? How's she walking here?
I'm just worried, like I can feel the pain her ankle would feel if she twists her foot and falls.
Yeah, practically stilts. She was walking on stilts.
Some people have actually commented and said that, how can you comment on something like that? It's so superficial, but it's a part of the costume. It's a part of the film. The costuming is a part of. It was just very distracting. Those shoes continuously throughout the film, and I've seen many films with Nusrat Bharucha. This was the first one where I actually actively noticed how high her shoes were. Sorry.
Rahul, what were you fixating on?
I was just fixating on, how bland the film was, because I like, obviously, as you said, you have Ansel Mehta, so you have expectations. But I always thought that, a combination of Love Ranjan and Hansel Mehta may not be a great idea. I get it, you're trying to offset the Love Ranjan universe by basing it in Haryana, where, sexism is such a misogyny is such a
It's
huge thing.
inbuilt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's inbuilt. I get that you're trying to offset it, but the it's so visible that it seems pretentious after a while. Like, the dialogue writing, the entire and having Saurabh Shukla out of all the people as the hero's best friend, it just all did not. It's just such a, and sometimes when good filmmakers make such basic stuff, and when the entire film feels like an afterthought, it's worse than being a bad film at times. It's worse to
Yeah.
screw.
That's what. That's what. It's more disappointing. It's like it cuts deeper.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
for sure. Like, if you ask me out of Lakshmi and this, which I was more disillusioned with this week, I'd say, because we just
This
watched
one.
Scam 92, and it's not Hansel's fault that he's flying high with Scam 92, which is much deserved. But
Right.
then it's also a job to point out that sorry, you've gone terribly wrong with a film after that. We can't just say that it's your legacy. You may have been sort of wanting to do something light after doing something heavy. No, a good film is a good film. A light film can be a good film too.
Absolutely.
And using references like Dangal in the film, and then having the Nashad Barucha character who was more or less playing a Love Ranjan heroine only,
Correct.
In Haryana.
and and still going around like blackmailing parents into sending their kids like with legal consequences. I'm like, in what universe do the writers think this is
No,
likable?
no. But can we just talk about those dogs? Like he
Oh,
he he put those children in
that,
front of like these killer guard dogs
that
so
is,
they could run to like they could learn to run faster. I was just like,
that's trauma.
And then playing the dog voice on the loudspeaker, am I supposed to feel something watching that? Feel like, oh yes, what a great idea. It is so basic. Like, no, who
No.
wrote this?
Yeah, it drove me crazy. I just felt very sad. I felt
Yeah.
very defeated by the end of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I think for me, okay, I'm trying to figure out how to say another big disappointment, because I so love Diljit, was Suraj mein Mangal Bhari. And it was just, it began with him looking into the camera and saying, "Hi, peoples." And I was like, okay, we're in for a good time. And then
Yeah.
what happened to that film? Where did it go?
Fatima Sana Sheikh, we haven't seen her since Thugs of Hindustan. Yeah, we see her twice in a week.
Correct.
And the first one where she's the best part about the film.
Yeah.
And the second one where it's just, what was this? Why did they do this to you? They try to, it's the token feminist writing a little bit that this girl is a DJ in the 90s and she doesn't, but then at the end of the day, she's a ditz. She's ditzy. If you want me to believe that Supriya Pilgaonkar looks like Manoj Bajpayee's mother, I will not buy that.
I have to tell you, so you go into their home and he said, and I was like, no.
What?
What? I said, no, you guys are brother and sister, right? It's like, no, it's I just lost my head. I'm like, okay, I cannot. I just can't.
Who thought that was a good idea?
Who thought that was, but look at this combination. Look at what Diljit and Manoj Bajpayee could have done.
Yeah.
Like as different as actors can get, and both so good at what they do. And then you have Vijay Raj, and you have, Anu Kapoor, you have Supriya Pelgaonkar, you have so many people. And you get this hash of a movie, which it was excruciating. It was just excruciating.
No, it also has to be
Yes.
said. It has to be said that like whether it's a comedy or like a horror comedy or whatever it is, filmmakers really need to, first of all, like 2 or 20-minute films should. I thought we were over that.
Yeah.
2.5 hour films and all. So I mean, you're automatically tiring the viewer out with your length. It's bad
Yeah.
enough that whatever is in the film is bad, but filmmakers really need to return to that nice little period we had 5 or 6 years ago when no film was going over 2 hours, and I was
Right.
like, okay, maybe Hindi cinema has changed for the good. every single film, and they have no reason. Like a film like Chhalaang, a film like Suraj Pe Mangal Bhari has no right being over, 80 minutes long. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you cannot.
And also, riddle me this: why was the film set in the 90s?
I don't know.
Nostalgia. Like it's.
But what
not-
nostalgia did they serve?
One pager. They showed a pager. That was it.
Yeah,
Is-
they
is
showed
there
a
a reason?
pager, and that's about it. And
Yeah.
and I've been seeing this in web shows and films, and I had to point it out in the review too that you really need to get over the 90s. It was just 20 years ago. It's not a period film. It's
Yeah.
really not a period film. The
Not
70s
quite
are
Paris
great.
in the 20s.
Yeah, exactly. I get the 70s fixation, and 70s Bollywood and but 90s, showing me a pager and showing me there are no cell phones, and part of the synopsis on Wikipedia is like in a age where there was no cell phones. I was like, come on, you really are kidding me. This is your selling point.
No, then show me the sleuthing. Then show me the detective work that went into being a detective without cell phones and without the internet. That also the film doesn't commit to.
No, but look at the comedic potential of a detective who was a failed actor. Right?
Yeah.
He's a frustrated actor. I mean, you can do so much with that. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be deep. It doesn't have to be some great message movie. Just play with that idea. It's a great idea, but they don't do anything. I mean,
Yeah.
and that there was this line where Diljit Dosanjh tells Vijay Raz that that your wife is cheating on you, and he says कि गाय आपकी और घी कोई और खा रहा है. And then I just lost my head. I was like, no, I'm done.
No, absolutely not. And Diljit Dosanjh's comic timing is one of the finest you've seen in actors ever.
Yeah.
And you can tell there are many moments in the film where he's improvising because it immediately stands out. It immediately it's better than the writing of the film, and you're like, ये इसने improvise किया क्योंकि उसका improvisation film की writing से बेहतर है.
Correct.
Unfortunately.
So all said and done, my favorite Diwali release of all the films I saw, I did not catch Sir, which is a shame. I've heard such good things about it. But I will. So my favorite Diwali film was the Tamil film, Surarai Potru. I recommend everybody go see that film. It's on Amazon Prime.
Where has Surya been my whole life?
I
He's
agree.
just so hot. Again, another example of the actor's personality potentially becoming bigger than the film.
Right.
But if you make a good film and if the actor is invested in the film and in the characters, that doesn't matter. Then the film becomes bigger than the actor's off-screen personality.
Yeah.
And Surya Rai Potturu is bigger than Surya. It's such a good time at the movies. It's classic storytelling. It's a very easy watch. Yeah. It is an uplifting watch. Again, this is not a film about that's trying to change society or giving out any big messages like that. It's good old-fashioned, comfortable storytelling, and it told in a very competitive, in a good way. Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
And for me, the love story was one of the best I've seen in a long time. Just so beautifully done. What a wonderful relationship. So Rahul, we both strongly recommend it.
Please
yeah,
watch.
well, point taken. I also recommend Sir, which I just actually watched this morning, and I was very sad to have missed it. And it's really one of the best Hindi films I've seen this year.
How lovely. Okay, so we'll catch up on that. You catch up on this, and we will reconvene after the next batch of movies.
Yes.
Okay, guys.
So nice,
stay
you guys.
safe.
Stay
Okay.
safe.
Bye.
Clearly, all of us have been hard at work watching all the movies possible. Which one did you watch this week? कौन सी आपको पसंद आई सबसे ज़्यादा? Tell us in the comments below. And if you want more of this, subscribe to Film Companion. Thanks.